This video is sponsored by PCBWAY.
Hey there, this is Seth Schaefer from Team Just Cause Robotics, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Sonic. Not this version, but a different version, because it's been a very long time since the event that I'm talking about in this video. I'll be talking about how Sonic performed at the Maker Battle November 2024 event, and the last time I posted a video about Sonic was an entire year ago, I just checked, so whoopsies. But I'll talk about why exactly it is that I delayed this recap for so long. Don't have as good of an excuse for the other recaps that I'm behind on for Division version 4.5, which has now competed twice in recaps you haven't seen yet, but I will be trying to get those ones out in a much more timely schedule than waiting, 6+ months for them. So, what exactly happened with Sonic? Well, I brought two different copies of Sonic to this event, hence the title of this video, A Tale of Two Sonics, because there was a version 1.0, which is the bot that I fought at Maker Battle back in April, and that actually won the tournament, and then Sonic version 2.0, which had two huge major improvements to it, or at least what I thought would be major improvements. The first one is the RDY 5022 hub motor, which I designed specifically for Sonic to improve on its weapon reliability, because version 1.0 had its weapon motor shafts shearing pretty much every other fight. Version 1.0 used a chassis that looked like this. I have it all disassembled, but most of the guts of it were just transferred into this one, which I call version 1.5. And then version 2.0 used a completely different chassis, and it might be a little bit hard to tell on camera, but the version 2.0 chassis is actually smaller in all three dimensions than the 1.0 chassis, or at least the internal volume is quite a bit smaller in all three dimensions, and the whole thing is a lot narrower. And the way I was able to accomplish that was with a prototype version of the Blitz Lite drive motors. If you haven't seen these yet, these are the newest product that I just launched that are available today at justcauserobotics.com. This is the 3800 kV version, but there is also a 2850 kV version. And this uses a custom 1604 brushless motor and a fully custom 20mm gearbox, Planetary gearbox, which is a 29:1 ratio. So you get about 1500 RPM at 12 volts with the 3800 kV and about 1000 to 1100 RPM on 12 volts with the lower 2850 kV variant of these. They come with a 6mm billet 4140 output shaft, and mod 0.35 gears with 2.5mm pins. Those are bigger gears than you'll find in my Dartbox 22mm. So the gearbox as a whole should be very, very durable. The motors obviously are a lot smaller than you typically find for a 3-pound robot, but they're massively overpowered for a 1-pound robot. So in Sonic, I thought they would give it some serious legs. The sample motors I got were all the lower 2850 kV variant, so it actually ran a bit slower than it did with the old Dartbox Viper setup that I had here. And of course I had to switch away from using the Weka, which is a dual brushed motor controller, to instead using some different brushless speed controller options. So even though I don't have an assembled version 2 Sonic, I do have the two electrical setups that I had in two different copies of it. The first setup here was the first one that I made, and it basically was too much spaghetti to really fit neatly inside of the robot, but I used HackRC 35A ESCs for drive, and the Blitz Lite samples, as you can see there. Power switch, ER4 ELRS receiver for the first time, and another HackRC for the weapon, which isn't connected right now. This didn't really work out super hot, so then I rewired everything again, spent many hours using a 4-in-1 ESC also for the very first time. So this is a Neutron dual hold mini 45 amp ESC. I had a connector for the weapon motor, which again is unplugged and not here right now. Sample Blitz lights with the shafts cut, otherwise the same as the ones you just saw, and the power switch, and then an FS2A receiver, because that was the tried and true option that I was familiar with, and that had always worked reliably for me in the past, and I didn't have any issues with it in Sonic V2. What I did have issues with were these sample gearboxes. The motors on the production version are very, very similar, but the gearboxes are completely different, and I actually switched to a completely different supplier. The reason that I haven't posted this video was because I didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver on a finished product, and I also had no idea how long it was going to take to actually get a finished product here. I paid for the production gearbox back in December, and they only just arrived a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't want to share details about Sonic version 2's new experimental drive system in public and have a bunch of people asking me, when are the Blitz lights going to be here, and how much are they going to cost, and how much are they going to weigh? Because I don't have a way of knowing exactly how much they're going to weigh until I have them on hand to actually weigh them, since the gearbox was completely different. I don't have a way to tell you exactly how much they cost because the tariff situation has changed wildly in the last several weeks. And I also couldn't promise exactly what they were going to look like and if they were going to even work until I got them here and was able to test them. So now that I've actually got all of these awesome production versions in and I've tested them and they absolutely work and they look awesome, I'm happy to say you can now buy them at justcauserobotics.com. Check the link down below. So the Blitz lights use a 1604 brushless motor, and they are meant to run in beetle weight robots that weigh 3 pounds without magnets, and anything smaller than that. If you're going to run a shuffler that's 4.5 pounds or whatever, I would recommend stepping up to something like the Blitz Pro brushless or using something else suitable. But anything that would be direct driving, maybe 2-inch wheels or smaller, as a rough estimate. If you're running 4-cell voltage, you can use the 2850 kV, it'll be perfectly fine, but those motors are technically compatible with up to 6S if you're careful about heat management and you have appropriate gear reduction on them. Again, like, don't run a 6-inch wheel huge style robot with these in direct drive, but appropriate gear reductions, they'll work. And if you want to push your robot really hard, you're running like a 4.5 pound shuffler bot or something crazy, the Blitz Pros, which are bigger and heavier than this, but use a far more powerful 2306 motor size, will do you just fine. And for up to 4 cells, I believe also the 3800 kV that I just showed should be fine, but the 3800s are only rated for 4S and they do run a bit hot at that voltage. So again, you just need to design your bot carefully, make sure that they get some airflow and that you're not pushing them too hard, and they should be fine. In general, though, I think most people will be happy running the 2850 kV on 4S in pretty much any standard beetle weight setup that like covers 90+% of robots. And if you have specific questions about your specific setup you're imagining for them, I'm happy to answer those questions. Just email me at team@justcauserobotics.com. So with that ad read out of the way, why did I have to bring 2 copies of Sonic? Clearly, version 2 should have been way better, right? Well, it should have been, but unfortunately it wasn't, because developing products is really hard, takes a super long time, and I vetted a lot of different suppliers and ordered a lot of sample motors. I built an entire motor test rig over the last couple of years that I used to evaluate those motors and determine that the 1604 motor should be a great size for it, but the gearboxes were a bit of another story. I ordered sample gearboxes from a couple of places, and then I tried to get a customized version of an off-the-shelf gearbox that I used for these samples that ended up in Sonic V2. But I didn't get the motors until 1 day before the competition. Literally, they arrived on November 1st, and the competition was November 2nd. And when they arrived, I found that the drawings online for this gearbox that I had been using to make my modifications to the design, they were all wrong. The motor mount plate geometry was completely different in the drawing as to what it was in real life. So the motors basically just don't actually fit properly on the gearbox. And while yes, I can still power the gearbox with the motor and the shaft will spin, I basically had to sand the motors to get them to interface with this at all. And the diameter was so undersized on the gearbox that these had to be arbor pressed together and they'll never come apart. And I couldn't even press them far enough to get the screw holes in the gearbox to line up with the screw holes in the motor, because the thickness of the motor mount plate that was posted in the drawing was actually completely wrong as well, that I used to base the motor mount geometry on. So long story short, basically the wires are exiting in a different place than I wanted because the clocking of the face mount screws are not the same as in the drawing, and the motors didn't fit into the gearbox properly, so a lot of them didn't run super smoothly, and it was really hard to get them to mount concentric without destroying the motor in the process. And so I had the motors basically not spinning up consistently. Every time I tried to push forward, like half the time, only one motor would start. I basically had no low speed control. I think there were issues where the motor wires were like pressed up against the chassis because they were exiting in a different place than I had designed for, and that was causing the motor cans to sometimes get bound up. And so just in general, version 2.0 drove completely terribly, and it was a complete mess. Version 1.0, on the other hand, drove phenomenally, but had a weapon setup that I knew was nowhere close to as good as version 2. And with only one day before the competition, and the fact that version 1 was basically at the weight limit, and the hub motor setup added like 40 grams to it, I basically had no way of adding the hub motor setup to version 1 and making that work. Version 2, with the lighter weight Blitz lights, which save a considerable amount of weight, and the smaller overall chassis that also itself is like 70 grams lighter weight than the version 1 chassis, that I could make the hub motor work. So I basically brought both of them thinking, if I have to fight a really powerful spinner, I'll run the hub motor because it would break the regular weapon motor on version 1. And if I need to fight a control style bot, I can run version 1.0, or a robot that doesn't have a powerful weapon, I can version 1.0 because the weapon setup will hopefully hold up and driving will be more important. And so that's what I did. I brought 2 copies of version 2.0 with different electrical setups like I showed earlier, and I brought 1 copy of version 1.0, the same one that had won the tournament previously, and hoped I could scrape by with it this time around. Alright, with that long spiel out of the way, I know what you came here for. You want to see some robot fights. Let's get right into the fights. And my first fight of the day was a real doozy. I was going to be fighting my good friend Julian Papazian and his absolute monster, Cheddar Goblin. Cheddar Goblin is basically droopy, but if it was made out of TPU and weighed only 1.5 pounds instead of like 4. So 2 huge horizontal spinners on each side, and how fast each one starts accelerating determines whether the bot lurches forward to take a step or not. So it basically needs both of its spinners to have any kind of controlled movement, and my hope was I could take out at least one of them and kill the bot and not die in the process. So I had to run version 2.0 with the hub motor set up for any chance that it would survive like delivering 1 hit without the motor shaft on 1.0 snapping. Alrighty, this one was going to be tough. Let's see if I could pull it off with barely any drive control.
Go. 3, 2, 1, fight! Alright. Just a little excited. Oh, yeah, let's go! Oh, man. Cheddar Goblin. Cheddar Goblin just having a party by himself in the middle.
We are hoping that these guys can get
Julie, while these 2 robots get screwing themselves, I just want to say thanks for everybody coming. Look at this crowd. This is our biggest crowd so far, for sure. Let's hear it for the robots and the drivers. Here we go. Look at, they're just having their self-dance party. Looks like a middle school dance party. Hanging out in the corner. Alright, we got 34 seconds. If someone can do a backflip, I think you might get bonus points. I'm not sure. Oh, that was nice. Good job, Sonic. There we go. Oh, nice. All right. I think if the Cheddar Goblin doesn't win, floppy fish might.
3, 2, 1.
All right. I have no clue who won that, but that was a lot of fun to watch.
Okay, well, my wheel was Loctited 5 minutes ago.
One motor.
I'm gonna pull him over and then I'll grab you. So yeah, that was a judge's decision win, but definitely not the cleanest win that I've ever had. This, by the way, was a trophy that I received from Julian after the fight. And this is the motor that was on Cheddar Goblin. Of course, it came apart so easily before. There we go. So yeah, this is the stator, this was a stator. It is no longer a stator because I ate it with Sonic. And somehow the magnet ring and the bearings are perfectly fine. So I guess if you really needed half of like whatever motor this is, then hit me up because these look expensive. Anyhow, yeah, really nice trophy to collect from that fight, and limped to the finish there with one wheel because I had put Loctite on that was too fresh and didn't have time to cure on the other one. But I added some divots to the shafts so that they couldn't slide off as easily next time. Of course, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, PCBWAY. PCBWAY has been supporting this channel for a very long time. They even sent me this plaque, which I kind of forgot about for a few months, but Partner of the Year for 2024. PCBWAY has been supporting my channel with CNC machining services and also PCB fabrication for various projects I've been doing for the last couple of years now. And they always do great work. Even if occasionally it takes a bit longer than I'd like, they still deliver a quality part at a very good price. So make sure to check them out at the link down below, and you'll probably be impressed by the timelines they can manage now that the delays from Chinese New Year's are over, and the prices are great compared to a lot of more domestic manufacturing options as well. Send them a part quote, and with the link below you get $5 off of your first order, so let them know that I sent you. My next fight was going to be against a bot called Sour Patch. Now, Sour Patch was supposed to be a ring spinner, but unfortunately their ring spinner didn't actually work. You will notice in the fight that they do spin, but it's because they're just spinning their wheels in opposite directions, so the whole robot spins around like an extremely bad melty brain that was in no way designed to be a melty brain. So even though it might look fast on camera, this ring was spinning at like a tiny fraction of the speed and with an absolutely minuscule percentage of the hitting power that it was designed to have as a true ring spinner. So I chose to run Sonic version 1, knowing that without their ring spinner actually working, my weapon should hopefully hold up the whole fight, and as long as I can keep hitting them and they don't hit me at all, it should be a really easy win, right?
One, fight!
Sour Patch spinning up.
Well, sometimes things don't always go to plan.
Sonic just disassembled.
Sonic made one great hit, and those
Oh, that was, wow, Sour Patch spinning up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the match.
It was pretty funny the way the weapon just fell out after Sour Patch hit the ground. So yeah, I thought I was able to more or less control the fight because Sour Patch only had two choices: to either spin in place, demonstrating no control whatsoever, and they should have been counted out for that, or me trying to push them around and just keep getting batted away by their very ineffectual spinner while I have no weapon to counter it with. So I thought I demonstrated full aggression and full control in that fight despite suffering the only noticeable damage. But the judges felt different because they awarded the win to Sour Patch in a decision that I will question for the rest of time. But no point getting upset about spilt milk because that means that I have another fight to look forward to coming up. My next fight coming up after that was a rematch with a bot named Esper, built by my friend Kakoto Mane from Team WPI. Now, Esper and Sonic have met in the past, and Esper has a really interesting kind of 4-bar linkage system with a little fingertech drum spinner attachment on the end of the arm. It's 4-wheel drive bot, so while in theory you'd think a 4-wheel drive bot would have good control, Esper was kind of thrown together last minute, and while it did have some upgrades over the last time that I saw it, I still wasn't too terribly worried about Sonic being ripped apart. So I opted to run version 1.0 again in hopes that I could get around to the sides of the back of Esper and disable its weapon or drive quickly without taking too much damage. So let's see how this fight went.
And they're charging up. Sonic making their way over.
The quickly factor on Esper's weapon noggin is really excellent. We're going in all angles here.
Oh, Sonic was over. Break it for us. Just finding their positioning again. Sonic.
Let's flip it back over at least. Well, okay,
That's a lot of lies.
okay, alright. Not only did that googly eye come on, we got some good hits in.
Did they have to say
Both got two very experienced robot players here, and both of these robots are pretty solid.
His driver's not great.
Pretty solid.
Both these guys do a great job.
You will.
Esper's got the flip lever.
What the weapon is so cool.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a knockout.
Esper's been knocked out.
So yeah, that Esper fight went pretty much to plan. They got stuck at one point, I freed them, they got stuck again, I left them, they got counted out, and I got the win. My next fight was going to be a lot tougher. This time I was fighting a beater bar called Dr. Drumstick. This was definitely one of the most try-hard bots at this Maker Battle event. In general, this event tends to be relatively chill and with like less super serious hardcore robots. I know Sonic winning the event, you might think that was kind of a hardcore bot, but with the weapon system destroying itself practically every other fight, I don't really consider Sonic to be that try-hard of a robot. This version 2 was supposed to be much more so, but with it not really functioning very well, I wasn't super confident in my chances against a meta design like Dr. Drumstick with the beater bar on the front. Now, I knew that Sonic version 1.0's weapon setup would just never survive a direct weapon-on-weapon hit with Dr. Drumstick, and I also knew I was going to need to be able to drive better than 2.0 did to really get ahead on this fight if Dr. Drumstick's weapon didn't go down. So I did make the tough decision to run version 2.0 with its hampered drive, but hopefully much more durable weapon setup, hoping that I could get a lucky shot in on Dr. Drumstick before my hub motor went down or anything bad would happen. Maybe I could disable their drive or their weapon and get the upper hand. I really wanted to avoid going weapon to weapon as much as I could and hope to get around to the sides and the back. It's just kind of hard to do that when your bot barely behaves the way that you want it to the entire time. So this was definitely going to be a bit of an uphill battle for me. Let's see how this fight went.
Judges ready. Timer ready. 3, 2, 1, fight.
Here we go.
Come on, go forward. There we go.
You got this. You got this, Dr. Drumstick. For yourself. All right,
Dr. Drumstick lost a little bit in her wheel there. Come on,
It's really the long way, so that
Sonic lost the wheel. Dr. Drumstick might also be stuck in the wall. Don't free himself. Sonic trying to right themselves. One of the guns I saw in Sonic.
Dr. Drumstick still was prepared for this fight. I have to wonder where the name Dr. Drumstick came from. It is an egg beater on the front.
Motion.
Trying.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a knockout.
Alright, so that did not go well. It looks like the hub motor died and it got hit pretty hard. The bearings are popping out, which is not good. Yeah, so the drive still works. So at least it's somewhat durable. Yeah, I think an arbor press could probably press this back in and I bet it would still work. Not really sure why that backed out when it was Loctited, but I think the motor just got so hot that the Loctite failed. So that's a shame. Alright, so I'm probably not going to fix this guy today. So yeah, biggest problem was that I Loctited the wheels too recently and the Loctite didn't hold. In the future, I will probably add divots to the drive axles on both sides. I added a divot on this side so that even if the screw loosens a bit, it can't just slide off. So as far as the 4-in-1 ESC and FS2A combo here, this has been really janky and I don't really understand why. It doesn't want to arm properly half the time. So I need to look into that. Otherwise, it was somewhat reliable, I think, though I don't know how much of my problems with the drive motors are from the speed controller or the settings being bad on the speed controller or something like that. This chassis absolutely needs to go. I'm going to probably redesign it so it's more similar to this one and then actually has rear screw holes so that I don't need to tape the back together. So the original one, yeah, the weapon setup still sucks. I might try and just make the next version be exactly this, except with the hub motor mounting, which is what I originally wanted to do, and then I found out that it would be overweight, or at least I thought it would be overweight, though honestly I'm not so sure anymore. So yeah, that was pretty rough. As you can see at the start of the fight, I basically couldn't even get out of my starting square. The chassis was a little bit bent out of shape. I didn't have that much time to prototype new versions of the chassis, given that I only had one day before the event. And I think the weapon was scraping on the floor a little bit, which was making it hard to spin up. And then on top of all of that, one of the nastier hits that Drumstick landed on my weapon was at a weird angle, and it popped one of the bearings out of the hub motor slightly, making it so that the hub motor bound up. And eventually he got a good hit on a wheel. I lost that wheel, and then Sonic was flipped upside down in the corner and is unable to self-right with only one wheel operating and touching the floor. So that was pretty much that. A sad way to go out, but I still had a lot of fun at the event, and it was great getting to chat with all of my robot friends as usual. I'm hoping to be back for a future Maker Battle event in, I think, July this year. So I'll be trying to bring an improved version of Sonic, like version 3.0, that has actually working drive motors this time is the plan. And I'll actually have more time to make sure that I have the bot together than one day before the event this time, which will also help. There is also, of course, this copy of the robot. This is a version 1.5, which has the hub motor and the version 1.0's drive setup, but I had to print the body out of an extremely expensive, lightweight, flexible material called PCBWAY to make weight with this copy, and this one went to fight at the RCL Championships. So I'll post a video at some point in the next few weeks or month or two about how this version of the bot went, but I wasn't actually driving it. I sent it to a guy named Rohan Person to drive it in my stead, because he actually lives in California, unlike me, and the event was being held all the way out there, so I didn't want to spend the like $500+ for airfare and then hotel stays just to be able to compete with the robot that I had to throw together last minute to send out there, and instead opted to just have him drive it for me because the Blitz lights didn't get here in time for me to actually make version 3 prior to that event, unfortunately. But they are here now, so next time Sonic competes, it'll definitely be a full redesigned 3.0 version with working brushless drive, working hub motor, and I think it'll be a force to contend with then. Fortunately, I didn't walk away completely empty-handed, as for the second time in a row, Sonic was awarded the Scariest Robot Award, which has been hanging behind me this entire video, and I bet you didn't even notice. One last minute thing I completely forgot to mention before, I'll be competing at the June 7th NHRL event with this, an upgraded Shameless Self-Promotion 2.0 using the Blitz Lite drive motors, of course, and I've got a few other tricks up my sleeve with this bot that I don't want to reveal just yet. You'll just have to watch the NHRL stream and wait for an event recap to find out more details. But definitely going to be interesting running a brushless SSP for the very first time in competition. Alright, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to hit the like if you like this video, and subscribe for more if you'd like to see the next event recaps for Division and Sonic coming up soon.